tent that she alone occupied, for some wealthy men had a number of tents, and women sometimes were assigned their own tents. GE 13. 5. 31. 33 Probably mats were used on the ground inside the tent. Tents were a distinctive feature of nomadic life, contrasting with the houses of those having a more settled life. Thus, Abraham is described as dwelling in tents while he was awaiting the city having real foundations. Heb 11. 9. 10 It seems that during their stay in Egypt, the Israelites mainly lived in houses, not tents. X 12. 7 But upon leaving Egypt, they reverted to tents. X 16. 16 And used them throughout the 40 years in the wilderness. The 14. 8. New 16. 26 During this period two particular tents were especially important, the tabernacle and Moses' tent. X 25. 8, 9. 26. 1. 33. 7. See tabernacle. Tent of meeting. Even after the Israelites conquered the Promised Land, tents were still used at times by shepherds or agricultural workers in the field. Q 1. 8 Zechariah 12. 7 likely refers to such ones, as they would be the first to be affected and in need of protection if an enemy nation came against the land to attack the city of Jerusalem. Also, tents were used by military commanders and armies when on distant expeditions. 1 17. 54. 2 Chi 7. 7. Compare Da 11. 45. The long contact of the Israelites with tents undoubtedly gave rise to the poetic use of tent to refer to any habitation, even if it was a normal house. X 12. 23, 30. 1 13. 2. 1 Chi 12. 16. PS 78. 51. Figurative uses. This familiarity with tents is also reflected in the Bible's many figurative references to tents. Regarding the time he was approaching death, Hezekiah wrote, "My own habitation has been pulled out and removed from me like the tent of shepherds." Isaiah 38. 12 As a tent occupying a spot could quickly be taken down and removed, the poles taken out and the pegs pulled up, so Hezekiah's place in the land of the living seemed transitory and easily removed. Philip has likened death to pulling out the tent cord, which would make a tent collapse. Job 4. 21. Somewhat similarly, Paul used the metaphor of a tent when speaking of the human bodies of spirit-begotten Christians. A collapsible tent is a more fragile and temporary dwelling than a normal house. Though existing on earth in a mortal body of flesh, the Christians who have the Spirit as a token of the heavenly life to come look forward to a building from God, a heavenly body that is everlasting, incorruptible. 1 Co 15. 50-53. 2 Co 5. 1-5. Compare 2 P 1. 13, 14. In portraying the destruction to come upon the Jews, Jeremiah used the figure of a tent. J 4. 20 He likened the desolated nation to a woman whose tent was down, with its cords cut. Adding to the pathetic condition, her sons were in exile, so there was no one remaining who could help her with the work of raising and stretching the tent. J 10. 20 When the Babylonians destroyed Jerusalem, the city as a former collection of dwellings could be described as the tent of the daughter of Zion into which God had poured his rage. Bar 2. 4. A tent also o textoi acute miritra longo, 10 words 1085 Tent maker. One who makes or repairs tents. Acts 18. 3 designates the trade of Paul, Aquila, and Priscilla by the Greek term ske:/os. Various opinions have been offered as to the exact type of craftsman indicated by this word, whether a tent maker, weaver of tapestry, or oak maker. However, numerous scholars acknowledge that there seems no reason to depart from the translation tent makers. The Expositor's Greek Testament, edited by W. Nicole, 1967, Volume 2, p. 385. When Paul first visited Corinth, he stayed with Aquila and Priscilla on account of being of the same trade. Acts 18. 1-3 The Apostle Paul was from Tarsus in Cilicia, an area famous for its go-there cloth named kilism from which tents were made. Act 21. 39 Among the Jews of the 1st century CE it was considered honorable to teach a ladder trade even if he was to receive a higher education. So Paul likely gained experience in the manufacture of tents while still a youth. Tent making may also have been the type of work the apostle did in Thessalonica 1th 9. 2th 3. 8 and other places. Act 20. 34, 35. 1 Co 4. 11, 12 The work was not easy, for it is reported that the kilism tended to be stiff and rough, consequently difficult to cut and sew. Tent of meeting. An expression applied both to the tent of Moses X 33. 7 and to the sacred tabernacle erected in the wilderness. X 39. 32, 40. 40. 2, 6, 7, 22, 24, 26, 29, 30, 32, 34, 35 For a time until the erection of the tabernacle, the tent of Moses served as a temporary sanctuary. It was because the cloud, representing Jehovah's presence, stationed itself at likely, in front of the entrance of this tent whenever Moses entered, and Jehovah communicated with Moses there. It was called the tent of meeting, evidently because the people had to go there to inquire of Jehovah and thus, in effect, they met Jehovah there. X 33. 7-11 Apparently for the same reason the sacred tabernacle was termed the tent of meeting. See tabernacle. Tent of the testimony. See tabernacle. 10 words. This translation of the Hebrew expression asrith had middle.rim, found only in the Pentateuch, designates the 10 basic laws of the law covenant, commonly called the 10 Commandments. X 34. 28. The 4. 13. 10. For this special code of laws is also spoken of as the words the 5. 22 and as the words of the covenant. X 34. 28 The Greek Septuagint X 34. 28. The 10. 4 reads Deka 10 logos words, from which combination the word Decalogue is derived. Source of tablets. The 10 words were first orally given at Mount Sinai by the angel of Jehovah. X 20. 1. 31. 18. The 5. 22. 9. 10. Acts 7. 38, 53. See also G 3. 19. Heb 2. 2. Moses then ascended the mountain to receive the 10 words in written form on 2 stone tablets, along with other commandments and instructions. During his extended 40-day stay, the people grew restless and made a molten calf to worship. Descending the mountain, Moses saw this spectacle of idolatry and threw down the tablets that were the workmanship of God, the very tablets upon which the 10 words had been written, and shattered them. X 24. 12. 31. 18. 32. 19. 9. 8-17. Compare Lu 11. 20. Jehovah later told Moses, carve out for yourself 2 tablets of stone like the first ones, and I must write upon the tablets the words that appeared on the first tablets, which you shattered. X 34. 1-4 And so after another 40 days spent in the mountain, a duplicate copy of the 10 words was obtained. These were kept by Moses in an ark of acacia wood. The 10. 1-5 The 2 tablets were called the tablets of the covenant. The 9. 9, 11, 15 Evidently this is why the gold overlaid ark later made by Bezalel, in which the tablets were eventually kept, was called the Ark of the Covenant. Jos 3. 6, 11. 8. 33. JG 20. 27. Hob 9. For this legislation of the 10 words was also called the Testimony X 25. 16, 21. 40. 20 And the O Textoi Acute Muritra Longo, 10 words 1086 Contents of the Commandments. By way of an introduction to these 10 words is the forthright statement in the first person. I am Jehovah your God, who have brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of slaves. X 20. 2. This not only states who is speaking to whom but shows why the Decalogue was especially given to the Jews at that time. It was not given to Abraham. The 5. 2, 3. The first commandment, you must not have any other gods against my face, put Jehovah first. X 20. 3. It involved his lofty office and unique position as God Almighty, the Most High, the Supreme Sovereign. This commandment indicated that the Israelites were not to have any other gods as rivals to Jehovah. The second commandment was a natural follow-up of the first in that it forbade idolatry in any shape or form as an open affront to Jehovah's glory and personage. You must not make a carved image or a form like anything in the heavens, on the earth, or in the waters under the earth, nor are you to bow down to or serve them. This prohibition is underscored with the declaration, because I Jehovah your God am a God exacting exclusive devotion. X 20. 4-6. The third commandment, in its proper and logical sequence, declared, you must not take up the name of Jehovah your God in a worthless way. X 20. 7. This harmonizes with the prominence attached to Jehovah's name throughout the Hebrew Scriptures 6,979 times in NW. See Jehovah importance of the name. Within just these few verses of the 10 words X 20. 2-17, the name occurs 8 times. The phrase not take up has the thought of not pronounce or not lift up carry. To do this to God's name in a worthless way would be to lift up that name to a falsehood, or in vain. The Israelites who were privileged to bear Jehovah's name as his witnesses and who became apostate were in effect taking up and carrying about Jehovah's name in a worthless way. Isra 43. 10. S 36. 20.